Part 1. The silent morning Captain Sarah Chen had been expecting a routine supply run to Kepler Station. The journey from Earth took 3 weeks through hyperspace, and she had made this trip dozens of times before. Kepler Station sat in the Gliese 667c system, humanity's proudest achievement in deep space colonization. Home to 12,000 researchers, engineers, and their families, it represented everything humans could accomplish when they worked together. The station had been built around a massive asteroid, hollowed out and transformed into a gleaming city among the stars. Gardens grew in artificial sunlight, children played in zero-gravity parks, and scientists made discoveries that pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. It was a symbol of hope, showing that humanity could thrive anywhere in the universe. But as Captain Chen's ship, the UNS Explorer, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Gliese system, something was terribly wrong. The usual chatter of communication signals was absent. The beacon that should have guided them to the station remained silent. Even the automated trading posts that orbited the system's outer planets showed no signs of activity. Chen felt ice form in her stomach. She had served in the United Nations Space Force for 15 years, and she had learned to trust her instincts. Something had happened here, something terrible. "Run a full sensor sweep," she ordered her crew. Lieutenant Rodriguez, her communications officer, was already working frantically at his station. His face had gone pale as he monitored the frequencies that should have been alive with human voices. "Captain," he said quietly, "I'm not picking up any human transmissions at all. Not from the station, not from the research vessels, not even from the emergency beacons." Chen moved to the tactical station where Ensign Park was conducting the sensor sweep. The young officer's hands shook slightly as she worked. They all knew what silence in space usually meant, but nobody wanted to voice their fears. "Sensor sweep complete, Captain," Park reported. Her voice was steady, but Chen could see the fear in her eyes. "Kepler Station it's gone, ma'am. I'm detecting a debris field where it should be. No life signs, no power signatures, nothing." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Chen closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the families she had transported to Kepler just 6 months ago. The Johnsons, with their 2 young children excited about their new life among the stars. Dr. Martinez, the botanist who had been developing new crops for space agriculture. Commander Lisa Park, the station administrator who had worked tirelessly to make Kepler a true home for its residents. All gone. "Take us in closer," Chen ordered. "Full recordings. Document everything." As the Explorer approached what had once been Kepler Station, the full scope of the destruction became clear. The asteroid that had housed the colony was cracked open like an egg. Debris floated in a slowly expanding cloud, pieces of hull plating mixed with personal belongings and equipment. Chen could see a child's toy drifting past the view screen, and she had to fight back tears. But this wasn't just destruction from an accident or natural disaster. The patterns of damage were too precise, too organized. Weapon burns scarred the larger pieces of debris. This had been an attack carried out with military precision. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "I found something. An automated distress beacon, badly damaged but still transmitting. It's been broadcasting for approximately 72 hours. Chen straightened. "Put it through." The message was broken, filled with static, but the voice that came through belonged to Commander Lisa Park. The station administrator's final words were barely audible. "Unknown vessels appeared without warning. Massive ships. They're not responding to our communications. They're opening fire. All hands. Evacuation impossible. Tell Earth. Tell them we tried to." The message cut off in a burst of static. Chen stood in the quiet of her bridge, staring at the debris field that had once been home to 12,000 human souls. Her crew waited for orders, but she needed a moment to process what they had discovered. Humanity had finally encountered another intelligent species among the stars, and that first contact had been an act of unprovoked genocide. "Collect samples of the debris," she finally ordered. "Full forensic analysis. I want to know what kind of weapons did this and what kind of ships fired them." then set course for Earth, maximum speed. The journey home took 2 weeks, but Chen spent every waking hour analyzing the data they had collected. The weapon signatures were unlike anything in human databases. The debris patterns suggested attackers with technology far beyond current human capabilities. But most disturbing of all was the complete absence of any attempt at communication. Whoever had destroyed Kepler Station had done so without even trying to make contact. When the explorer reached Earth, Chen transmitted her findings directly to United Nations headquarters in Geneva. Within hours, President Maria Santos had called an emergency session of the Global Security Council. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their faces grim as they watched the recordings from Kepler. President Santos was a small woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering in her 60 years of public service. She had led Earth through climate disasters, economic crises, and the challenges of expanding into space. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying clearly. Through the hall, 75 hours ago, humanity suffered its first attack by an alien species. 12,000 innocent people, including 3,000 children, were murdered without warning or provocation. Kepler Station, our greatest achievement in deep space, has been completely destroyed. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs and angry voices. Santos raised her hand for silence. "We do not know who carried out this attack. We do not know why they chose to destroy our colony rather than attempt communication. But we do know this. They have made a grave mistake in judging humanity's response to such an act." Admiral Marcus Torres stood at the back of the assembly hall, his weathered face set in stone. He had commanded Earth Space Forces for 8 years, overseeing the expansion of humanity's presence among the stars. He had always hoped that first contact with aliens would be peaceful, but he had also prepared for the possibility that it might not be. Torres was a tall man with gray hair and scars from his early days as a fighter pilot. He had grown up in Argentina, the son of farmers who had taught him the value of hard work and protecting what you loved. Now, as he listened to the president's words, he felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Admiral Torres," President Santos called out, "I am authorizing Operation Homecoming. You have unlimited resources and complete authority to mobilize every ship, every weapon, and every soldier humanity can muster. We will find whoever did this, and we will ensure they never threaten another human life." Torres stepped forward and saluted. "Understood, Madam President. We will not let Kepler Station go unavenged." Within hours of the authorization, activity exploded across human space. Every shipyard from Earth to the outer colonies received emergency construction orders. Military academies graduated entire classes early and sent them to accelerated training programs. Civilian vessels were requisitioned and converted for military use. Dr. Elena Vasquez received her orders while working late in her laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps. She was one of Earth's leading experts in exotic physics and theoretical weapons design. Her work on particle beam technology had revolutionized space travel, but now she was being asked to turn her peaceful innovations into tools of war. Vasquez was a quiet woman in her 40s, originally from Mexico, who had dedicated her life to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. She had 3 children of her own, and the thought of what had happened to the families at Kepler Station filled her with a cold determination she had never felt before. "Dr. Vasquez," Admiral Torres said when he called her personally, "I need weapons that can reach across star systems and destroy anything that threatens human life. Can you do it?" Vasquez looked at the photos of Kepler Station's children that covered her laboratory walls, images she had requested to remind herself why her work mattered. "Give me 6 months, Admiral. I'll give you weapons that will make them regret ever hearing the name humanity." Commander James Wright was leading a training exercise on Mars when he received his new orders. Wright was a career Marine, built like a mountain, and equally hard to move when he set his mind to something. He had served in the asteroid mining conflicts and the Jupiter colony uprising, earning a reputation as a soldier who never left anyone behind. Wright gathered his Marines around him in the red dust of the Martian training ground. These were the best fighters humanity had ever produced, men and women who had volunteered to defend human colonies across the galaxy. Now they would face their greatest challenge. "Marines," Wright announced, "we've got a new mission. Someone out there thinks they can murder human families and get away with it. They're about to learn why that was a mistake." The mobilization that followed was the largest in human history. Every shipyard worked around the clock. Every factory retooled to produce weapons and military supplies. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers faster than they could be processed. The attack on Kepler Station had awakened something primal in humanity, a determination that surprised even their own leaders. President Santos stood in the observation deck of Luna Base, looking out at the construction taking place in Earth's orbit. Thousands of ships were taking shape, from massive dreadnoughts to small fighter craft. It was a fleet unlike anything humanity had ever assembled, and it was growing larger every day. "They wanted to see what humans are capable of," she said, quietly to Admiral Torres, who stood beside her. "They're about to find out." As the 6 months of preparation drew to a close, the true scope of humanity's response became clear. Nearly 900,000 vessels had been built or converted for military use. Weapons that had existed only in theory had been made real. An army of volunteers had been trained and equipped with the best technology human science could produce. The aliens who had destroyed Kepler Station had made a simple assumption, that humanity would be too weak or too frightened to respond to their attack. They were about to discover just how wrong they had been. The storm that was about to be unleashed would echo across the galaxy, a final warning to any species that might consider humanity easy prey. The storm unleashed. 6 months after the destruction of Kepler Station, the largest fleet in human history gathered at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the UNS Retribution, a massive dreadnought that served as the flagship of humanity's response. Through the viewports, he could see ships stretching beyond the horizon, a forest of metal and determination that represented every nation, every colony, and every human who had sworn to ensure Kepler Station would not be forgotten. The fleet was organized into battle groups, each with its own specialized role. The vanguard consisted of fast attack craft designed to probe enemy defenses and provide reconnaissance. Behind them came the main battle fleet, massive ships bristling with the new weapons Dr. Elena Vasquez had developed. Support vessels carried Marines, medical personnel, and the diplomatic teams that would attempt one final peaceful resolution before the shooting started. Torres had spent weeks studying the intelligence gathered from Kepler Station's debris. The attackers had left traces, fragments of their technology that human scientists had analyzed with obsessive precision. The weapon signatures led to a star system 47 light-years from Earth, a system the aliens called Zephyr Prime according to intercepted communications. Captain Sarah Chen, now serving as Torres's chief intelligence officer, approached the admiral with the final reconnaissance report. Her face was grim as she handed him the data pad containing their destinations. "Details, Admiral," she began. "Our long-range probes have confirmed the presence of a major alien civilization in the Zephyr system. We're looking at a species that calls itself the Zephyrian Empire. They appear to have controlled this region of space for over 1,000 years." Torres studied the data, his expression unchanging. The Zephyrians were clearly an advanced species, with technology that in some areas exceeded human capabilities. Their ships were powered by exotic matter engines, and their weapons could focus energy in ways human science was only beginning to understand. But they had made one critical error in their calculations. "How many ships do they have defending their home system?" Torres asked. "Approximately 8,000 vessels of various sizes," Chen replied. "Their largest ships are about twice the size of our heavy cruisers. They clearly don't expect any serious resistance." Torres allowed himself a thin smile. 8,000 ships. They probably think that's overwhelming force. He gestured toward the viewports showing the human fleet. "They're about to discover what overwhelming force actually looks like." Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent the 6 months of preparation working 18-hour days in her laboratory. The weapons she had developed were unlike anything in human arsenals. Quantum disruption cannons that could tear apart the fundamental structure of matter. Gravitational pulse generators that could crush enemy ships like tin cans. And her masterpiece, the stellar resonance array, a weapon that could destabilize a star itself if the situation became desperate enough. But Vasquez had also insisted on building safeguards into every weapon system. These tools of war could defend humanity, but they would not be used for conquest or revenge beyond what justice demanded. She had programmed limitations into the targeting systems, ensuring they could only be used against military targets and never against civilian populations. Dr. Vasquez, Admiral Torres had asked her during the final weapon tests, "Are you certain these systems will work against alien technology?" Vasquez had looked at him with eyes that held both scientific certainty and deep sadness. "Admiral, these weapons work by manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. It doesn't matter what species built a ship or what materials it's made from. Physics is physics, and physics doesn't play favorites." Commander James Wright had spent the preparation time training the largest Marine force ever assembled. 50,000 of the best soldiers humanity could produce, equipped with power armor and weapons designed for fighting in alien environments. Wright knew that if diplomacy failed and ground combat became necessary, his Marines would be humanity's final argument. Wright walked among his troops as they conducted final equipment checks. These men and women came from every corner of human space, united by their determination to protect human life. Sergeant Maria Gonzalez from the Luna colonies checked her power armor systems one final time. Corporal David Kim from the Mars settlements cleaned his plasma rifle with practiced precision. Lieutenant Sarah O'Brien from the Jupiter mining stations reviewed the tactical plans for urban combat in alien cities. "Marines," Wright addressed his forces over the comm system, "in a few hours, we're going to jump to the Zephyr system. We're going to try talking first because that's what civilized beings do. But if they want to settle this with violence, we'll show them how humans fight when our families are threatened." The response from 50,000 voices was a roar that could be heard throughout the fleet. Hurrah! President Maria Santos had joined the fleet for the final jump to Zephyr Prime. This was not just a military operation, but a moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. If successful, it would establish humans as a species that could not be attacked without consequences. If it failed, it might mean the extinction of human civilization. Santos stood in the flagship's command center, surrounded by the greatest military minds humanity had ever produced. Admiral Torres commanded the fleet operations. Captain Chen managed intelligence and first contact protocols. Dr. Vasquez monitored the weapon systems that could reshape the battlefield. Commander Wright prepared for ground operations that might determine the fate of both species. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," announced the fleet communications officer. Torres looked at President Santos, waiting for the final authorization. This was the point of no return, the moment when humanity would announce its presence to the galaxy in terms no one could ignore. "Admiral Torres," Santos said formally, "you are authorized to proceed. Operation Homecoming is approved." "All ships," Torres broadcast to the entire fleet, "initiate hyperspace jump. Destination, Zephyr Prime. Today we honor our fallen, and we ensure they will be the last humans to die unavenged." The jump to Zephyr Prime took 12 hours, an eternity for the crews who knew they were heading into the unknown. When the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the alien star system, the sight that greeted them was both beautiful and terrifying. Zephyr Prime was a blue-green world orbited by massive defensive platforms. The Zephyrian fleet was already in formation, their ships gleaming silver against the backdrop of their home star. They had been expecting visitors, but the scale of humanity's response clearly shocked them. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies." The alien voice that came through the speakers was translated by the AI systems into precise English. "Unknown vessels, you have entered Zephyrian space without authorization. Identify yourselves immediately or face the consequences of your intrusion." Captain Chen stepped forward to handle first contact protocols. She had practiced this moment hundreds of times during the journey, preparing for every possible scenario. But now, facing the species that had murdered 12,000 innocent people, she felt the weight of human history on her shoulders. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Force, representing the government of Earth and all human colonies," she broadcast in response. "We are here to discuss the unprovoked attack on our colony at Kepler Station, which resulted in the deaths of 12,000 human civilians. We demand an explanation and reparations for this act of war." The response came quickly with a tone of arrogant dismissal. "The colony you speak of was established in space claimed by the Zephyrian Empire for over 6 centuries. Its presence was a violation of our territorial rights. The destruction was a lawful enforcement action." Admiral Torres stepped beside Chen, his face hard as granite. "Captain, inform them that they have 1 hour to begin negotiations for a peaceful resolution to this matter. If they refuse, they will discover what humans do to species that murder our children." The hour passed with no response from the Zephyrian fleet, except to strengthen their defensive positions. It was clear they had no intention of negotiating or acknowledging any wrongdoing in the destruction of Kepler Station. President Santos gave the final order. "Admiral Torres, you are authorized to use all necessary force to ensure that no further attacks on human colonies occur. Make them understand that humanity will not tolerate the murder of our people." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. The Zephyrian fleet, confident in their technological superiority, launched the first attack. Their energy weapons were indeed powerful, destroying several human ships in the opening moments of combat. But humanity's response was overwhelming. Dr. Vasquez's quantum disruption cannons tore through alien shields like they were made of paper. The gravitational pulse generators crushed entire squadrons of enemy ships. The human fleet's numerical advantage became decisive as wave after wave of ships pressed the attack. The Zephyrians fought bravely, but they had made a fundamental error. They had assumed that a species capable of interstellar travel would fight according to their own limited concepts of warfare. They had never encountered an enemy that could field nearly 1,000,000 ships in a single engagement. Within 6 hours, the proud Zephyrian fleet was reduced to scattered survivors broadcasting surrender signals. Their orbital platforms were destroyed or captured. Their homeworld lay defenseless beneath the guns of humanity's massive fleet. Commander Wright's Marines landed at key military installations across Zephyr Prime, meeting little resistance from demoralized alien forces. The Zephyrians, tall beings, with crystalline skin and 4 arms, had never experienced military defeat on such a scale. President Santos personally led the negotiations that followed. The terms were simple. The Zephyrian Empire would formally acknowledge responsibility for the attack on Kepler Station. They would pay reparations to the families of the victims. Most importantly, they would broadcast a message to every species, in their sphere of influence, explaining what had happened and warning others about the consequences of attacking human colonies. The Zephyrian Emperor, an ancient being whose crystalline skin had turned dark with age, signed the peace treaty with trembling hands. "We did not understand," he said through the translation devices. "We did not know that your species was capable of such determination." Admiral Torres stood beside President Santos as the treaty was finalized. "Your species made a simple mistake," he told the Emperor. "You thought that because we were new to space we were weak. You confused our desire for peace with inability to fight. That error cost you an empire." The human fleet remained in Zephyrian space for 3 months, overseeing the dismantling of their military installations and ensuring compliance with the peace terms. During this time, other alien species sent diplomatic missions to meet with humanity, eager to establish peaceful relations with the newcomers who had defeated the mighty Zephyrian Empire in a single battle. Captain Chen, now promoted to Admiral, established the first human embassy on Zephyr Prime. Her job was to ensure that the peace held and to serve as humanity's representative to the dozens of alien species that now sought contact with Earth. Dr. Vasquez returned to her laboratory, but now her work focused on peaceful applications of the technologies developed during Operation Homecoming. The same quantum manipulation techniques used in weapons could revolutionize space travel and energy production. Commander Wright established a Marine base on Zephyr Prime, both as a symbol of human presence and as a training facility for the new reality of interstellar politics. His Marines would serve as protectors of human interests throughout the galaxy. President Santos addressed the United Nations Assembly 6 months after the fleet's return to Earth. Behind her, displayed on a massive screen, was an image of the memorial built at the site of Kepler Station. 12,000 names were carved into a monument that orbited the system's star, ensuring they would be remembered forever. "We did not seek war," she told the assembly and the billions watching around. "The world. We sought only to live in peace among the stars, to build homes for our children and to explore the wonders of the universe. But when that peace was shattered by those who mistook our kindness for weakness, humanity responded with a unity and determination that surprised even ourselves." She paused, looking out at the representatives from every nation on Earth. Today, human colonies span 50 star systems. Our ships are welcomed at alien ports throughout this region of the galaxy. Our diplomats work with dozens of species to build a lasting peace. This is the legacy of Kepler Station, the fruit of sacrifice that we pray will never be demanded of us again. Admiral Torres, now serving as the commander of human space forces, maintained fleets at strategic points throughout human territory. But the massive armada that had brought the Zephyrian Empire to its knees was never again assembled. Its very existence had changed the balance of power in the galaxy, and the memory of Operation Homecoming served as a deterrent to any species that might consider humans easy targets. The children of Kepler Station were gone, but they had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had purchased something precious, the knowledge throughout the galaxy that humanity, while peaceful by nature, possessed the unity and determination to defend itself against any threat. In the years that followed, human space expanded peacefully, protected by treaties and respected by alien neighbors who understood the price of testing human resolve. And in the quiet moments, in the corridors of ships and the chambers of government, humans remembered the lesson of Kepler Station, that peace is not weakness, that kindness is not naivety, and that a species willing to fight for its children is a species that will never truly be defeated.